So now, as we start to round out the episode here, you listen to the pod, you knew it was coming. Sean, is a hot dog a sandwich and why?
Yes, I think it's fundamentally it is a sandwich. I have some disdain for folks who think that it's not a sandwich just because the fact is there's a bun, there's meat in the middle, and maybe open face. We can quibble about that, but fundamentally, it, it's just a specialized sandwich.
All right. There you go.
So it is happening, and the profession is better for it worldwide. So thank you, Matthew.
Well, thank you, John. And I have to ask you the question I ask all my guests, which is a hot dog a sandwich and why?
Yeah, a hot dog is sandwich. I don't eat hot dogs. Yeah, I should have been ready for that, shouldn't I? No, well, a sandwich. I think you cut all the way through. Hot dog, you don't, do you? You just open one part. Or that just shows you my ignorance of hot dogs, I suppose. If I have to go out and buy one, and then I'll come back to you and take that on notice and answer that question, Matthew.
So I want to make sure what we're getting at least a little bit of an answer from you. I'm hearing no, because a sandwich is something you could cut all the way through and not a hot dog. Is that your final answer?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The only time I think I'd ever seen a hot dog like maybe cut in half though is for like if a kid was eating a hot dog and it was too much for their little hands to hold. That would be like the only time, but it's a different way that you'd cut through it. So it's interesting. Yeah,
that's true. Well, you're a practicing lawyer, so you will be able to come up with those sort of things to rebut my argument. I understand that.
Yes. I'm not saying that there is a right answer to this question. It's a great insight into our guests. That's my approach, and that's worked really well.
I love it.
Two quick questions for you, then you can run. The last ones, they're very easy. First, is a hot dog a sandwich and why?
A hot dog is like a sandwich because it's on bread. But if you eat it on bread, it's not a sandwich if you don't eat it on bread. So there's qualifier there.
Okay, there you go.
I have a problem that needs solved. I want it solved for as reasonable as I can get it done and done right. And that's what your clients want.
Mhm.
Whoever can serve them the best and be able to do that is the one who's going to make the most revenue. And just keep your spending in line, because the reality is, I don't care what kind of business owner you are, they all spend too much money.
Mhm.
It just gets out of hand.
Mhm. Well, with that, Rocky, I'm going to ask you the question I ask all my guests, which is why they stick around to the end, and that is a hot dog a sandwich and why?
A sandwich? I don't even eat hot dogs. I've never. I mean, I guess it comes between two pieces of bread and it's a thing of meat, but it's a tube. But it's a long piece of bread. I think of a sandwich as square.
Mhm, mhm.
I think of that long thing more as a sub. So the question is a hot dog a sub? Right? I don't know.
Well, so okay, I just want to make sure I'm hearing you. No, it's not a sandwich because it's not square. Is that your final answer?
I will go with that. Yes. Do I win?
We'll see. We'll see. At the time of this is published, maybe there's already a compilation episode out there of everyone's answer to that question.
And that really opens up our perspective and ability to challenge the way things are and create new paradigms. And, but I do think, if I don't know if you've got a crystal ball, behind you somewhere, but I think that you're onto something about, I think that you're onto something about, what the future looks like, the future of the profession in terms of, I think the new frontier is really figuring out how do you provide legal services and solutions that meet the needs of everyday people, because there's this latent market that's out here. And the folks who can capitalize on that are going to really just shift the way that people think about working with lawyers and what that can look like. So, I'm on board with you on that.
Yeah. So there's no easy way to pivot to my last question, but we'll just do it sane. And that is a hot dog a sandwich and why?
No, a hot dog is definitely not a sandwich. I understand why someone would think that it might be a sandwich, but sometimes, as with everything, there are some things that just don't follow or fall into the rules. And a hot dog, even though it's meat between, a piece of bread, maybe that's why, maybe it's just because it's one piece of bread instead of two pieces of bread. But to me, well, I mean, I guess you could say that with a sub or a hoagie too. But you can't explain it with logic. It's not a sandwich.
So I've been able to ask this question a lot lately because I've been interviewing a lot of people in and or around Philly. Then a rare follow-up question: is a Philly cheesesteak a sandwich?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's on like a sub sometimes, right? So like that's
Um,
there's no
it's
separation.
it's always on a sub, so like I said, I'm not going to try to explain it logically. Some things just defy logic, and one of those is a hot dog. For some reason, it's not a sandwich, and I'm sticking to it.
I do agree with you that the exponential growth is, if you think about the iPhone, when the iPhone came out, it was something that wealthy people got, right?
Mhm.
And then 20% of the world had iPhones, and all of a sudden that was the tipping point. iPhone was the standard. Now, there are other phones out there, but anytime a technology hits 20%, then that's the tipping point, and AI is evolving faster than we can even imagine.
Yeah. So wrapping up the interview here, I'm glad we were able to find some common ground, first of all. But wrapping up the interview here, I'll ask you a question I like to ask all my guests towards the end to make sure they stick around. And that is a hot dog a sandwich, and why?
I love a good hot dog. They don't love me, but I do love a good hot dog. I would call it a sandwich, yes.
Why
I
do you
can't
think
tell
that?
you. Well, I can't tell you why. I can tell you that I love them, but they don't love me
Come on. We got just a little something. Your gut reaction. Why is it that to you a hot dog is a sandwich? It
because
doesn't
it's
have
wrapped. It's wrapped in bread.
to. Okay. All right. There we go. That's all we need. We just need a little explanation.
And so if you're a lawyer and you're like, gosh, I don't know how to service these employment law questions that are coming about every state, we're a great resource for that too.
And if it were up to me, Kimball, I would have every subscription-based law firm, new solo, leveraging this tool. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say they should use the code law subscribed when they're signing up. But yeah, but with that though, fun question for you, Kimball, and that is a hot dog a sandwich, and why?
Oh, geez, very hot topic within 650 as well. This has been hotly debated. We have a morning Zoom call, and this has taken up a lot of airspace. I'm going to say it is a sandwich. Okay. I think it has all the ingredients. It's got the bread, the meat in the middle, and bread again. So I think, those are the key elements of a sandwich. And so I'm voting sandwich.
Well, to anybody who sees this from 650, I hope you're not scared into not voicing your non-sandwich opinions on the next all-company Zoom meeting. Now that the CEO has staked, where he is in this argument.
That's
Right. Right. All right. Just stick around for 30 seconds, but we'll go off live here in a second. To all the live viewers on LinkedIn, thanks so much for coming.
And 8 of those ways might be dumb or things you already thought of. But if 2 of them are, oh, yeah, that's cool. Hey, that was easy, right? So
Yeah.
just give it a try.
I've like to refer to that as it's directionally helpful, usually.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Directionally helpful.
Yeah. The last question I like to ask all my guests, Ben, and first maybe you answer this personally, and then maybe if you have Copilot open, you could ask Copilot, and that is a hot dog a sandwich, and why?
Is a hot dog a sandwich? Gosh, it's funny. I have listened to a number of episodes of your show, and I had told myself I was going to look into that before we got here, just so that I would have an intelligent answer. My instinct is my personal instinct is to say, yeah, why not? It's meat between bread, right? Sure, it's a sandwich. So let's see what Copilot thinks. I'm going to ask it. Let's see.
Okay.
Is a hot dog a sandwich? And it's thinking about it, and I'm using the Copilot that's built into Bing, by the way.
Okay.
So this is a controversial question that has sparked many debates among food lovers, experts, and dictionaries. There's no definitive answer, as different definitions of a sandwich may lead to different conclusions. Okay, now it's suggesting potential ways to approach the question. So Merriam-Webster says a sandwich is 2 or more slices of bread or a split roll having a filling in between. So by that definition, a hot dog seems to be a sandwich. According to the National Hot Dog and Sausage Council, who knew, a hot dog is not a sandwich, but a category of its own. They seem like they would have some gravitas there, being the experts in the field. According to some
Or
food
biased
historians-
in one direction.
Yeah. Now, according to some food historians, a hot dog is a type of sausage roll, which is a pastry that wraps around a sausage, and those are not considered sandwiches. but some people argue that a bun is a type of bread, and so it should be. So it sounds like, and it's going on, by the way, giving me legal definitions, giving me, it's giving me a very thorough answer here, which is pretty impressive. It doesn't obviously have a definitive answer. But gosh, it's hard to disagree with the National Hot Dog and Sausage Council. I mean,
Well, clearly they didn't have any input on the Webster's dictionary definition.
apparently not.
Don't be afraid to innovate and think creatively, right? Your model doesn't have to be $500 a month. It could be $10 a month. $10 a month and you get access to this library of resources. You know what I mean? Think outside the box. Step outside of legal and law and think bigger as a business owner in general. And just be creative. Step into your client's shoes and think, what are the things I would want if I was in their shoes?
Great. Love it. Thanks again for coming on. Final question for you. Listener favorite, and that is, Darren, is a hot dog a sandwich, and why?
No, because hot dogs should not be eaten by human beings. That's just my opinion.
Okay, but so not firmly in the not a sandwich camp, but so sandwiches should be consumed, and because sandwiches should be consumed, and a hot dog is not a sandwich, don't eat them.
Because hot dogs don't necessarily qualify as food for me, so I would say no.
Okay, so then, I mean, that's what I'm saying. By extension, a sandwich, if it's a sandwich, it is human food.
It should be edible. Yes.
Okay. That's interesting. I'll take that. That's a first. Well, with that, we are almost out of time. I feel like we can't keep going, but we will have you back in like 6 months to a year to check in and see how things are going. But in the meantime, Martin, everybody stuck around to know the answer to this question, and that is, for you, is a hot dog a sandwich, and why?
So I just like my students, I always send them back to the, what's the law say? What's the precedent say? So I did some research. And Merriam-Webster says a sandwich is defined as 2 or more slices of bread or a split roll having a filling in between. So in that definition, a hot dog qualifies. But dictionary.com, it has a different but similar definition, defines hot dog as a sandwich consisting of a frankfurter and a split roll, usually eaten with mustard, sauerkraut, or relish. But we've got to have both sides of the equation. And Eric Mittenfall, he's the president of the National Hot Dog and Sausage Council, and he's been asked this question several times, and he says a hot dog is not a sandwich. He says that culturally, a hot dog is its own unique item that transcends the sandwich category. I liked that word, transcends. So there's a split decision.
You personally, though, where do you fall then, Martin, and why?
I say yes, it's a sandwich.
Okay. And the reasoning is because of these other definitions that you gave?
Yeah, I lean more towards the bread on a piece of meat on 2 pieces of bread or one folded over. I don't always eat hot dogs on a bun. I've eaten hot dogs on a piece of bread folded at different times when I had hot dogs and no buns. So.
Yeah. What's really fascinating, I think, at least on the publication side, this will air either directly after or maybe an episode or 2 after we had someone from Microsoft using Copilot to answer this question, Microsoft Copilot, Gen AI, which we didn't even talk about Gen AI, Martin. You mentioned Paxton, but so clearly you're using it, but that's a conversation for another time. So the Copilot answer, the AI answer, was all those different things that you just said, which is really fascinating to see that you did the research and came up with the same thing as Copilot. So there's a litmus test there for Copilot being accurate in its, in what it's doing. Fascinating. And for what it's worth, for one more argument to convince lawyers that they shouldn't be billing time is when you're not billing your time, it's easier to find time to do that training because you're not thinking this training is costing me a lot of money because you're going to be making money when you're not actually working because you've set up your business model so that it's either subscription or flat fee and you've already got the money sitting in your operating agreement or trust account. And when that happens, you're going to it's easier to make time for training for technology.
Agreed. And it's interesting. One last thought. It's interesting when lawyers go there because all of a sudden they're calculating how much money they're losing as opposed to how much money they could potentially gain if they let everybody in the firm sit through those training sessions uninterrupted and actually learn the software.
Right. So with that, my last question I like to ask all my guests is a hot dog a sandwich and why?
Well, I think it's a sandwich because it's a piece of meat in between 2 pieces of bread.
All right. But I think what you said about JEP is really interesting. I haven't asked any of the other people who've been through the program yet, but it's not surprising to hear that it's more women than men going through that program. So the last question I want to ask you then, Nick, is a hot dog a sandwich and why?
I knew this question was coming, and I feel like I still don't have a good answer. I'm gonna say no, it's not. And the only defense I have is that I tried to come up with a definition that would work for a sandwich that wouldn't include a hot dog. And where I landed is just that, some definitions have exceptions. We know that as lawyers. So, define a sandwich as, bread with meat and or veggies in it. And then, subpart A does not include a hot dog, does not include a lobster roll. Who knows if it includes like my son's tortilla chip sandwich. There's a lot of variety out there, but that's where I landed.
A tortilla chip sandwich. Very interesting.
Yeah,
right.
It's the driest sandwich you've ever seen.
Yeah. Are those little peanut butter sandwich cracker things? Are those sandwiches? That's a good question.
I don't know. Is an ice cream sandwich a sandwich?
That's a good question.
These are the questions that keep people up at night.
Right. I mean, because even if it has sandwich in the name, it doesn't qualify under the definition of a sandwich. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's good. We'll accept that answer. Thank you very much, Nick. Like the right lawyers are finding LawDroid and vice versa. That's good. Well, time flew by. I knew it was going to with you, Tom. So I have to ask you. I have to ask you the last question that I ask all my guests, why people stay around to the end of the show, and that is a hot dog a sandwich, and why?
Oh my God. You really blindsided me with that one. Is a hot dog a sandwich? And why? I would have to say, because I'm forced to answer this thing, is I think it is. I think it is because it is bread that encloses meat, and that's kind of my abstract idea of a sandwich. It's not two separate slices of bread, which would make it even more on point to be a sandwich. And then occasionally you do put relish, which is a kind of lettuce analog in there, and ketchup and mustard, and if you're in Copenhagen, you might put some mayonnaise on there too. So like, yes, I think it's more of a sandwich.
Yeah, you really got into the condiments there. It made me think of something I haven't heard at almost 100 recorded episodes, which is also there's a chili cheese dog, which has cheese on it. And cheese you normally associate with a sandwich too, right?
Right.
Yeah. I never thought like so between meat and cheese and hot dogs or cheddar dogs, I think yeah, maybe that does lean more. I don't know. I'm not the arbiter of what is and isn't a sandwich. I just think it's a fun question to ask. And
for sure.
And maybe then people can they could try out at least the free trial of LawDroid Copilot, and they could ask Copilot is a hot dog a sandwich and see what it says, and ask it about the case law around that too, and see what it says there. Yeah. So
honestly, most lawyers have really bad websites. So clients that come to a website even if it's a Wix template, it's easy to manage. You don't need more than that. You really don't.
Okay, we're technically at time. Do you have 2 more minutes so I can wrap up the show, if that's okay with you?
Sure.
Okay. I've got time. I just want to make sure I respect yours. So last question I asked all my guests, Rich, you listen to the podcast. If you've ever listened to the end of the episodes, you know it's coming. Is a hot dog a sandwich, and why?
Yes. Technically, it's 2 pieces of bread and a filler in the middle, whether that's meat, cheese, or some other concoction. I originally thought no, because I don't know what's in the meat of a hot dog. But then you think about peanut butter and jelly, and that's not technically meat or cheese. So whatever's thrown in that hot dog, yes, it's a sandwich.
Right, a grilled cheese sandwich, right? There's no...
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. That's good. That's I think you're the first person to point that out in almost 100 interviews. All right. Well, if
I've been listening so long.
Yes. You've been thinking about the important questions that we think about on the podcast.
All I think about. Yeah.
It's the AI tools are amazing. So with that, though, I think we're starting to get close on time here, and I want to be respectful of yours, though we're not billing it for this conversation. It's still good to respect people's time. So with that, I just want to wrap up with a question I like to ask all my guests, Jordana, and that is a hot dog a sandwich, and why?
So it's so funny. I will admit that I thought about this in advance because I listened, and I've been giving serious thought to this, and I do not think it's a sandwich because I feel like a sandwich is something that you have to eat with 2 hands. Like you have to be able to hold it shut to eat it which suggests that there's like a hat and a base and something in between. And for a hot dog, it doesn't. No one eats a hot dog with two hands. And if no one eats it with two hands, I don't think it could be a sandwich.
So is a hot dog a sandwich for children who need to use two hands to eat a hot dog?
Oh, that's interesting. Do children eat hot dogs with two hands?
They have tiny hands and tiny mouths, and hot dogs are the same size.
I would just say give them the little baby pigs in blankets if you're at it, because those are just so adorable and so much tastier. And there's no question that that's not a sandwich.
Okay. These are the questions of our day.
Exactly.
I take it personally when I'm not able to provide that justice to otherwise, valid clients, and simply because their matter is small. I can't help them and remain profitable if we don't get paid, but at least I can figure out a way for us to be able to provide that access to justice for that huge segment of the potential legal market that's not currently served. Right. And all the other benefits that we also talked about. But really the genesis of it was we were very tired of not providing that justice to the people that we went to law school to try and serve.
Yeah. Well, I don't think we're going to get better than that. So, Jody, hard pivot here. I'm going to ask you the question I ask all my guests, which is a hot dog a sandwich, and why?
Absolutely. Hot dog is a sandwich. It's got meat in between bread. That's a sandwich every day and all day.
All right. Well,
why? Yeah, meat between bread. Like,
yeah, that's a good.
I feel like the Earl of Sandwich that came up, the sandwich is named after. They put meat in between bread. That's how we got sandwich. Period. So I'm going to go with yes.
All right. Answer accepted. Not that I know what the right answer is. Like, did Gen AI help you come up with that, or that seems like you maybe came up with that?
That was me that came up with it.
So the last question I like to ask all my guests is just a fun one, Jonathan, and that is a hot dog a sandwich, and why?
That's certainly one you didn't prep me for. Is it a sandwich? I think so. It's got two pieces of bread in theory, unless you don't consider the top and the bottom to be separate pieces. And then there's some contents in the middle. So I think so.
All right. Dave, is a hot dog a sandwich, and why?
This is a great question. Is a hot dog a sandwich? Boy, that's a good question. Yes, I think a hot dog is a sandwich. If, your definitional boundaries of the sandwich are the bun and you have some material in there, sandwich by definition having something inside of it. So sure. Let's go with the, cheap and easy answer.
All right. So Tim, is a hot dog a sandwich, and why?
So I am going to go with no, a hot dog is not a sandwich for the same sort of reasons. But I think that is the subspecies of many bread wrapped meat foods, right? So you get into like quesadillas, tacos, those things. They're all separate entities on which a sandwich also falls, or a shepherd's pie type thing. There's a lot of things you can put a pot pie type stuff. Like bread around meat is the maybe genus. I don't know what we would call all those, but sandwich is just the subspecies.
Yeah, I think this is maybe the second time shepherd's pie was dropped in response to this question. Although I don't remember if they maybe came out on the other end of it, believe it or not.
I think you could go either way. Like the real question, if you really wanted to lawyer it out, is let's have hours upon hours of what is the definition of a sandwich first. Then we'll dive about like what is the definition of a hot dog, what is the definition of a bun, and then look for all the exceptions and throw in a nice some act of God type clause or something on all of our, so how much that would be 10 pages, and the lawyerly exceptions and A pages would be another 20 on whatever definition we came to.
Right. Absolutely. Right. I mean, obviously the answer is it depends, but it's good to get real answers from folks while we're on here. And my last question for you, Jim, and why everyone sticks around to the end of the episode is a hot dog a sandwich, and why?
I'm going to say no. That's a bold move. And I'm going to say it's not a sandwich because you need the bread. It's, it just isn't quite there, though. I'm about 60-40. I'm not, this isn't the hill I die on. This, and I'll die on a lot of these types of hills. Like you tell me you want the toilet paper over or under, that's a hill I die on, but I'll stick with it is not a sandwich. final answer, but yeah, not gonna fight you to the death on it.
I think
a lot
that's
of solid arguments both ways.
and you if you listen to every episode, you'll hear them. But that's the first time someone's assigned a percentage. I like that. 60-40. It is a sandwich.
I'll
Or
tell
it's
you
not
the
a
one
sandwich.
thing one thing I learned probably about a year ago that I thought was really helpful both for business and personal is define when you're gonna fight to the death on something and define when it doesn't matter. Because the number of times that me and my wife would have a disagreement and then it'd be just like, the reality is I'm like 55-45. So like, let's not like this should not be the thing that ends up, we should fight about all day, because I don't really care that much. And being able to define what really matters versus what doesn't really matter that much too is, I think, really helpful in just solving problems in general. So
All right. Well,
I
great. Well,
recommend.
we'll not get any better than that.
I think that having some practical business experience. I mean, I was working off my kitchen table, printing contracts on dot matrix printers. It just makes me different. Even at law school, I was different because I had real world experience and the other kids in there didn't. They came straight from school and they performed well, but they just viewed everything differently.
Right. Oh no, I whenever I go talk to a law school, I always ask who here you didn't come here fresh out of college, and I see those hands raised, and I tell everybody those are the people you have the most to learn from, other than your professors, and the things you're going to learn from them are going to be more valuable in your practice. So,
Right.
Final question is a fun one, and that is, Scott, is a hot dog a sandwich, and why?
Wow. Yeah, I think it qualifies as a sandwich. It's got bread on two sides. It's got meat in the middle, and you use the same type of condiments you would on, at least I would, on other kinds of sandwich. So yeah, I think it's a sandwich.
All right, thank you for that. You didn't waffle. You stuck with your answer. I get a lot of waffling on the answer to that question.
I think Gen AI is going to significantly impact the current business model of anybody who bills by the hour. So you will be very, very wise to learn about Gen AI. You want to be the lawyer who augments yourself with Gen AI. You don't want to be the one to go, oh, we can't do this. There's ethics, all those stuff. Those excuses always exist. So I would highly recommend your listeners figure out, start playing with it, and then get more and more thoughtful about how you can use it in your practice. So there's my final piece of counsel.
Good. I couldn't agree more. And I mean, I've had a lot of AI focused episodes, so everyone go check those out. Toby, my last question for you is a fun one. Is a hot dog a sandwich, and why?
I will say no, because it's never on the menu under the sandwiches section.
Interesting. So if you went to a restaurant and under sandwiches it did list hot dogs, would you change your mind?
If it became the preponderance of menus, yes. But I've never, because I'm a fan of the burger. I enjoy a hot dog, but I'm a fan of the burger, and I have noticed that there's a burger section and there's a sandwich section on menus.
Interesting.
A little crossover. So that's how. So how did I do? Is there a what's?
That's a first. I've received almost 100 different answers to this question, and that is a first. So I like it, and I'm going to start paying attention at restaurants where they put the hot dog now. That's great.
So yeah, audio podcasting for me is I'll go on any podcast at the drop of a hat. It's so easy.
The only reason I started doing video podcasting is because Substack made it so easy. I'm editing the same thing in Descript anyway, and I'm uploading it anyway to Substack. So I might as well just turn it into a video podcast. I'm not doing any extra work. You know. My last fun question for you. This has all been fun, but my fun question is a hot dog a sandwich, and why?
It's a taco. Come on.
You say that, but I mean, then is a taco a sandwich? Via the transitive property, then.
So, of course, I've had this conversation around the house. It's not a sandwich, but the joke is that it's a taco because of the shape of the shell.
3 sides. The thing is covered on 3 sides. Yeah. But then, what is an open-faced sandwich?
Disgusting. No.
But if you're actually trying to eat an open-faced sandwich that's not with a fork and knife, what shape does it resemble?
Yeah, taco, but that's not open-faced sandwich. That's not a thing.
Oh yeah, look, I was never a thing for me, but my wife grew up in the SF area, and they have open-faced sandwiches like a avocado toast is an open-faced sandwich.
That's toast. Come on. Come on. I mean, the only thing I can think of from growing up, because I'm like 55, so we're talking 70s, and my parents are from the Midwest. So the closest thing I can think of to an open, I mean, is a pizza an open faced sandwich? The closest thing
Oh, you're one of the few people that yeah, absolutely. I'd say yes,
No.
without question. Without question, pizza is an open-faced sandwich. That's correct.
Okay, so what you're saying is words don't mean anything, and you can just use them for. You're a lawyer. Come on.
Words mean very specific. I'm a lawyer. My trade is in words.
Okay. So when I was little, my mother used to make Thomas's English muffins with tuna and cheese, and it was like a tuna melt, and that was not breakfast. It was not a breakfast sandwich. It was a lunch thing, and it probably where my disgusting comment came from. It was disgusting, but is everything with bread a sandwich? Bread and anything a sandwich? No, a sandwich is to me, a sandwich is two slices of bread with stuff in between them. So like a grinder or a sub that you might call in a different area, but in Rhode Island it's called a grinder. It's a grinder. It's sort of like a sandwich, but it's a specific subtype, I guess. It's not.
Is that
a
why
sandwich.
they call it a sub? It's a sub sandwich.
Maybe. No,
Well,
I think it's because it looks like a submarine, but it's not a submarine either.
Right. As much as we could talk, is a hot dog a sandwich for a whole other hour? Jonathan Stark.
We just really want to be there for each other and understand what's going on in each other's lives, and I don't want to be reviewing other people's hours.
That doesn't sound like you don't have time for that kind of a thing in a billable hour firm, what you just described. So, I mean, thanks again so much for coming on the show. I just have one more fun question for you I like to ask all my guests, and that is, Jack, is a hot dog a sandwich, and why?
The better question is whether a taco is a sandwich.
Similar.
But so the part of the question, so is a Philly cheesesteak a sandwich?
I've asked that question as well for somebody's from Philly that's been on the podcast.
And I think one of the defining characteristics would be, is it two separate pieces of bread or one piece of bread that's split?
It can be both with a hot dog, right?
Have you ever had a peanut butter and jelly sandwich that is folded over as one piece of bread? And if you would call that a sandwich, I would argue you have to call a hot dog a sandwich as well as a taco.
And we've also had somebody answer the question, is a Crustable a sandwich or not? Which you just answered all of these questions that I've asked guests over the years. Yeah, so okay, I like your reasoning, sound reasoning. I'm not purporting to be the expert, by the way. This is why I asked the question. But yeah, okay, all right. So Jack Shelton, a hot is a sandwich, is where you come down on based on that reasoning.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
I think that's a definitive answer too.
Okay, all right. Understood.
But people will come and tell us things that they won't tell their spouse, that they won't tell their priest, that they won't tell their family members, that they won't tell their coworkers. There's a level of trust and honesty I think we get from people more than maybe any other profession in the world, maybe. And, when somebody trusts you that way, I think it's imperative, especially for the profession we've found ourselves in, to put them in as good of a position they can be. And that's what I try to do. So, and I'm sure you do the same. I can tell that just from this conversation.
Try anyway, right? Always try. So the last question I have for you is a fun one, John, and that is a hot dog a sandwich, and why?
I'm going to give you my answer regardless of the percentages. Do you ask everybody this question?
Every single person, and I could go over a few minutes. It's okay if I'm
What is the
late to this.
split? Is it like 50-50 or is it one way or the other?
So in over 100 interviews, I'd say, because I have a good sample size, it comes out 50-50. But with lawyers, I don't only interview lawyers, but with lawyers, you get a lot of unique answers too. And so it's hard to give an exact percentage, on this.
I would say no. I say no.
Okay.
I say the hot dog is its own unique meal, and just the fact that it has some foldable bread. What sandwich do you put relish on? What sandwich do you put a spear pickle on or sport pepper on? And then there are some sandwiches people will put ketchup on. And in Chicago, that's like, I put ketchup on my hot dog. Don't release this part of the interview ever, but I do ketchup on the hot dog. But that's sacrilege here. What are you doing? People slap it out of your hands. So, I love a good hot dog, and I could name probably 20 different great hot dog places in the city. I'm going to say not a sandwich.
Okay. Are you for real? Do you want me to edit that out? Because I will.
No. I'm just having fun. You can leave.
Okay.
People
All right.
turn
I
on
just
me
want to make
because I
sure.
do ketchup on a hot dog. It's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I just eat a plain hot dog. So like people look at me
I do
strange.
ketchup. There's a place called Blaze and Grill over by me, and I do ketchup, mustard, grilled onions, relish, usually. And I like the pickle, but I take the pickle off hot dog. I eat that last.
I do eat a pickle, just not on the hot dog, and I will like grilled onions on a hot dog. So not totally plain, but with that,
I was thinking we can do this better. There's an opportunity here. There's a business opportunity. And it was those convergence of factors, including the fact that I was kind of a refugee at that point after I'd left Big Law, but the convergence of factors, the access to labor and the access to technology, and that all converged. But I was always itching to do something else.
Yeah,
to
the entrepreneur brain and that itch is a common through line for guests on the podcast, without a doubt. The last question for you, Conrad, is just a fun one, and that is a hot dog a sandwich, and why?
Is a hot dog a sandwich, and why? I consider it a sandwich because it comes on bread, but that's very unscientific. That I would put it in that category, yeah. But it could be viewed, I guess, as a snack. But no, but I'm also from an older generation. We ate more hot dogs when I was a kid.
And it was still, I couldn't tell you what's in a hot dog today, and you probably definitely couldn't tell you what's in a hot dog back then. Well, Conrad...
I worked at Nathan's. That was one of my first jobs, believe it or not. Yeah, at the Livingston Mall in New Jersey.
Yeah, so you may be a hot dog expert then, Conrad.
I don't know if I would. I don't put myself in that category.
And so in the subscription plan again has helped in that sense, because I know a very good estimate about what I'm going to bring in next month, right?
Yeah.
What did I bring in last month, right?
Yeah.
And so that makes a huge difference between the roller coaster of a lawyer, right? I get a bunch of cases and then I get nothing, and I've lived it.
Yeah, and in particular, when doing tax planning.
Yeah.
If you have recurring revenue, it makes tax planning a heck of a lot easier as a business owner.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. It makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah. So with that, I'll ask you the last question I ask all my guests, and that is why my listeners stay to the end of the show. And that is a hot dog a sandwich, and why?
Well, okay. So I'm the hot dog guy, okay, because I have a hot dog stand. And so I've been asked this question many times. And the answer is, of course, it's a sandwich. It's between two pieces of bread. Now, people say, well, the bun is only one piece of bread, but it's really split. And so all bread is one piece of bread until you split it, right? So it's a hot dog is a sandwich. It's one of the best sandwiches out there, especially when you put a Chicago hot dog in it and put all those, drag it through the garden, as we say here in Chicago.
That's great. That's great. I was not expecting that. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show, Teen. And there's one question I like to ask all my guests. And to be fair, I didn't prep your team for it, but it's a fun one. And that is a hot dog a sandwich, and why?
Is a hot dog a sandwich? A hot dog is definitely not a sandwich. Just because there's bread, I mean, it's not, a sandwich, you sandwich it. A hot dog, it's a bun. The bun is more of a holder. I mean, look, I'm a New Yorker. I'm here in New York. Hot dog stands everywhere. And there's no one that's going to call a hot dog a sandwich. So.
Okay. All right. We don't grade the answers. We just like to ask it because it's a fun question.
I would claim a burger's not a sandwich. A sandwich is 2 slices of bread with sliced meat, peanut butter. But just because there's an existence of a bun, it's not a sandwich.
There are some rabbit holes you could go down with this one. Believe me, I've got compilation episodes that are some of the most downloaded episodes of just people's answer to this question.
How do you monetize? How do you monetize that hot dog?
Well, you want to maximize those subscriber benefits because you could just get all the toppings on top because there's usually just one price, right? Love it.
Hey, I got a question for you. If you take a pizza and you fold it in half, is that a sandwich? Definitely not a sandwich.
So I've answered this question before, and I'll say that I'm in the firm camp of hot dog is an open-faced sandwich. And so by extension, yes, a calzone, as you were kind of describing, is a sandwich because a pizza is just another open-faced sandwich, right?
You would call a calzone a sandwich.
Absolutely.
You have a really broad definition of what a
Yeah.
sandwich is.
You know, I had a guest on here, Megan Ma, out of Codex from Stanford, and
Yeah.
she actually, like, part of her PhD was this idea of language, and I can't remember
Yeah.
exactly what it was, but it was something like if you look at a thing based on its parts, or if you look at a thing based on how many elements it could be reduced to, and since one is like infinitely, like you could just keep reducing it to its atoms and its quarks, and
Right.
it's all made up, that we got to draw a line somewhere. So she was in the firm camp of hot dog not a sandwich, I think, and that was the
Nice.
most convincing argument I heard. Of course,
You
leave it
gotta
up
draw a
to
line somewhere. That's right. A macaroon. A macaroon's not a sandwich. Come on. Anything that's like, yeah.
That's true. I would say a macaroon is not a sandwich, but it's delicious.